Jewish traditions are dated back to biblical times. In this picture, a memorial for Jesus of Nazareth, Jewish traditions were observed.
A Jewish funeral is a sacred ritual that should be approached with dignity and respect as passed down by Jewish tradition.
The Jewish way of coping with death is a small part of a much bigger philosophy of life. All people are treated with dignity and equality.
The deceased is prepared for burial through a ritual washing called a tahara, which means purification as an expression of respect. Women tend to women and men to men. The body is turned in order to cleanse, but never turned face down. The washed body is then dressed in a traditional white shroud called a tarikin. This represents that all are equal before God. The dead are buried in a plain wooden casket called an aran to avoid interference with the natural process of returning to earth. Burial is required to take place as soon as possible, preferably within 24 hours following death. Burial must take place in the earth. The body must be completely and entirely intact. No autopsy or cremation allowed. Time between death and burial is called an anut, and the buried is called an onan.
Just before the funeral begins, the first formal act of mourning is called kriya. The tearing of a ribbon or piece of one's garment takes place. The torn garment is worn for the 7-day mourning period called the shiva. This is a symbol of inner grief. 7 members are obligated to perform this ritual: son, daughter, father, mother, brother, sister, and spouse. The funeral service is simple and honors the dignity of the deceased. The service consists of a reading for the Book of Psalms, a eulogy of his life's qualities, and a memorial prayer.
There are 3 stages of mourning. The first stage is called shiva. From the time of death until the conclusion of the funeral, the primary focus and concern is on the care of the deceased and the burial preparations. Once shiva begins, the focus shifts to the mourners, who consist of the spouse, parent, child, or sibling. Shiva is the 7-day period immediately following the funeral and preferably takes place in the house of the deceased. They feel the presence of the person who has passed away is strongest in his own home. It is suggested that the mourners move into the Shiva house together for the entire week. If this is not possible, those who cannot sleep there should leave after dark to go home and return early in the morning. The mourners experience intense grief, and the stage of Shiva is when the community is there to comfort and provide for their needs. Immediately upon returning from the cemetery after the burial and before entering the Shiva house, the mourners and anyone else who attend the burial perform a ceremonial washing of the hands. Washing stations may be provided by the funeral home, or they may use a bucket and a cup. They believe that when one has come in contact with the death, it is proper to pour water 3 times over each hand in order to focus on life, and water symbolizes life. The first thing the mourners do upon entering the Shiva house is to sit down to a meal of condolence. This meal should be provided by the friends and neighbors. The first meal is eaten silently and includes foods that are round to symbolize the circle of life, as in bagels, hard-boiled eggs, and lentils. Many friends and neighbors continue to take food to the Shiva home throughout the week. When visitors arrive to pay a Shiva call, it is customary to enter the home quietly. The mourners are not expected to greet the visitors, nor are they expected to act as hosts. The visitors are simply expected to comfort the mourners and to serve themselves.
A Shiva house must include a memorial candle. This candle should be lit and remain burning 24 hours per day throughout the entire week. It is believed a person's soul is compared to a flame, since each person brings light into the world. And just as one candle can light more candles without becoming diminished, a person can give of him or herself, touching many lives without becoming diminished. The Shiva chair. The mourners are required to sit low as a sign of mourning. Chairs are often provided for this purpose. The mourners have also been known to remove the cushions of a couch or chair in order to sit lower than the others. This is a physical symbol of the loneliness and depression that a mourner feels. Regular chairs are placed in front of the mourner, so visitors paying a Shiva call can sit close and provide emotional comfort. It is proper to cover the mirrors with sheets or with products used to accomplish the same, because mourners are striving to ignore their own vanity and focus on their loss. A mourner should wear either stocking feet or slippers. This symbolizes the disregard for vanity and physical comfort. Bathing or showering, although one can do this for cleanliness other than vanity. No makeup, haircuts, shaving, wearing of new clothes, or marital relations. Prayer services are held in the Shiva house, not in the synagogue. That way the mourners do not have to leave the home to put on a public face. This allows them to continue mourning without interruption. Traditionally, services are usually held in the morning and in the late afternoon and evening. It is good to pay a Shiva call during these times. The seventh day of Shiva. The mourners acknowledge that the Shiva is over by leaving the Shiva house publicly for the first time, taking a short walk around the block with those who have come to comfort them. This is their first step toward their gradual re-entry into everyday life.
The second stage of mourning is called Shlo Shim. Most restrictions that applied to mourners during the Shiva period are now lifted. For the next 23 days, mourners are allowed to leave their house and begin to work again. However, they should limit social engagements. Mourners are still expected not to shave or cut their hair during this time. This is still a period of mourning, but this custom is to allow for a gradual re-entry into everyday life. The mourner should not get up from the Shiva and jump back into a normal routine, for they feel this will not be healthy. Moments of deep sadness are to be expected, and having the restrictions of this stage reminds them and the people around them that this mourning process is far from being over. The third stage is called the 1-year period. The only people who remain mourners after the Shlo Shim stage are those who lost a parent. They continue to remain mourners until the 1-year period. It is believed that a longer adjustment is necessary because losing a parent is so difficult. After Shlo Shim, until the 1-year period, social engagements are allowed, but the pursuit of entertainment and amusement is curtailed. They are allowed to actively engage in business activities. After the year is complete, one is not considered a mourner. The unveiling. The erecting of a tombstone gives honor to the body that housed the soul. No tombstone is placed at the time of burial. Rather, it is the Jewish custom to erect the stone at a later date. Some do it right after the Shiva, while others wait until sometime within the year. Visiting the cemetery. Although a person can visit the cemetery any time after the stone is erected, there are special days for visiting the grave, such as on the 7th day after ending the restriction of Shiva, on the Shlo Shim, the 30th day of mourning, and on the completion of the first 12 months of mourning. The Jewish custom is not to bring flowers to the graves, but instead place a simple stone on the gravestone itself. This stone acts as a sign that the visitor was there. Flowers die, but the small, simple stone, a symbol of eternity, represents the eternal devotion to upholding the memory of the beloved.
Shalom bimroman, uya ase shalom aleinu. Ose shalom.